Hello, I'm Catherine Sines, the president of the Rotary Club of Hudson. Rotary is a professional organization of a group of men and women who support Rotary International. We also join together by a common interest of service to our Hudson community, and we have a sincere desire to give back. We meet weekly on Wednesdays at Laurel Lake Retirement Community, 200 Laurel Lake Drive, in their dining room. We meet from 7:30 to 8:30 and would like to invite you to join us. For more information about Rotary, go to www.rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the following excerpts from one of our recent meetings and consider joining us on Wednesday morning.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Father Joe Boisel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's pray together. Almighty God, it's only by your goodness that we come to the beginning of this day. We ask you to make us mindful of your presence throughout it. Help us also to be mindful of the needs of others around us, and always ready to reflect your life and your glory in this world. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test this morning, Joe Avella.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you.
I thought we'd concentrate on the Joes this morning, but we don't have one to lead us in song, so we will have Chris lead us in song.
Thank you. All right, so someone suggested that we should sing "Take Me Out to the Basketball Game." Okay, so I know some of, so I know some of the words won't exactly work, but it's going to be fun. All right. Take me out to the basketball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back, so it's root for the Cavaliers. If they don't win, it's a shame. So it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out of the old ball game. There we go. You don't believe this.
And to lead our meeting today, our President-elect, Evan McCauley.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us this morning. We've got a great meeting planned. First thing, we'd like to kick off with a gala update. We've got Gesture pulled up here, and we've got some good news. So Ron Strobel, everyone.
Thank you, Evan. Everybody can't get to this website yet, though. It'll go live on next Monday, and you can start bidding then. Most of the items are uploaded at this point in time, but we can't show them to you until you can bid on them. The good news is the gift intake this year is very quickly approaching what we had last year. I think maybe after today, the gifts that came in, last year we had $62,351 in gifts. Right now we've got $61,847. So I would think that we'll go over what we had last year. Right now I think we have about 250 people in seats. That includes all of the sponsors and donors. It does not include about 15 Rotarians, unfortunately. So if you would go to the website in the next 2 days so that Gail can get her final count on Friday, we'd greatly appreciate it. So if you haven't been there, please go and do it. Unfortunately, over the weekend, we had a problem with the website and people trying to get on and buy tickets. And thanks to Joe Avella and the help team at Gesture, that's now been cleared up. So I was getting phone calls, and every time I got a phone call, then Joe got a phone call because I don't know what to do. So thanks, Joe, for all your work this weekend. Still have a few openings for help on the gala, on the day of. We still need another strong body, in addition to Tom Tobin, to go help pick up the slot machine. Catherine is going to use her pickup, and Ben Rexroad is coordinating that effort. So if there's another strong body that would put their name below Tom Tobin, that'd be great. Still need some help with the live auction assistance, and basically that may be carrying items around, but the other thing we need is, while the live auction is going on, we need people that are spotters basically in the crowd, so that the Gesture people can be directed to the winning bidder. And so if we could get a couple more people for that, would be good. Checkout probably could use another name or two. So anyway, I'm going to start this around. I'll start it right over at this table. And things are great. Thank you.
Ron? Or maybe Evan? You point out, I know you didn't want to go over the specific items, but maybe the one with the $ sign and the circle, what that's about?
Absolutely. So that's available today. When you click on the link through our website, you have the option to register and buy tickets, or you can simply donate. So definitely feel free to utilize that button. Again, it'll be available on Monday. These items are awesome. I have the pleasure of doing all this year over year, and this year it's really exciting. My favorite gift is probably either the slot machine or the Freightliner trip. So it's a really unique experience. You get to go on a cargo ship on the Great Lakes, and that's something that you're not going to find on Amazon. So come out to the event, share that with your friends, and great job, Ron. Gail, great job. Moving along, I'd like to call Rich Warfield up to the podium along with John Adams. We have a new member induction this morning.
Did you want us both at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect. And you'll have just, a few minutes to tell us a little bit more about yourself, business, and... All right, perfect. While Rich is on his way up here, I'll get started. And we've gone through this about every week for the past 5 or 6 weeks. So I'm going to just shorten it just a little bit, and I think that you'll be fine with that, right, John?
I'll shorten mine too.
John Adams, on behalf of the board and membership of the Rotary Club of Hudson, it is a great pleasure to welcome you as the newest member of our club. We look forward to the fellowship that we will share, as well as your participation in many club projects that make our community, country, and world a better place to live. Rotary activities exemplify the charity and sacrifice that one would expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. John Adams, you have been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Hudson because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in our community, and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. Fellow Rotarians, please rise and join me in welcoming John Adams, our newest member.
I can do that. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. All right. Evan said 30 minutes or less, so if you'll... very briefly, I'm very happy to be part of this group. We've been in Hudson now literally for 22 years and raised our boys here, and when we became empty nesters, we started thinking about building something somewhere else. And both my wife and I looked at each other halfway through that process, and we're like, what are we doing? Let's just stay in Hudson. So we stayed in Hudson, and I'm really glad for that long decision to be in this town as long as we've been. Members of St. Mary's, we really believe in not just being a member of, but contributing in every way we possibly can to the community, and have done so for as long as we've been here in several ways. I just have never made it to here, the Rotary, and I keep seeing it in the hub, but on several boards, do a lot of traveling for my work, which is I do a wealth management and financial planning practice. I own the firm called Adams Guten Associates, but on a national basis, it's affiliated with the Northwestern Mutual Wealth Management Company. I do a lot of work in the retirement distribution space professionally, but set that aside. Very busy with that. And so as I came off these other boards and time became available on my schedule, was literally sitting in my den reading, and I saw in the hub a Rotary announcement. And I thought, I should start going to that. And I showed up for a meeting about 8 weeks ago, and then I've been kind of mostly coming ever since. And when I wasn't getting my badge, I'm like, is my membership applications lost in the mail? Is it stuck in the membership process? But Evan assured me everything was good. We just had to get in the queue. So I'm very happy to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, John. Thank you very much for your patience. We appreciate it. And we'll get you that new spiffy gold badge here pretty soon, too. We've got that made for you. All right. So as I go through my iPad here, one thing I'm working on is going paperless, so bear with me here just a little bit. Are there any other announcements for the good of the group? James Field.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning.
You should have gotten an email yesterday regarding the Relay for Life. If you didn't get it, please check your trash bin, retrieve that out, but I will send it again. So that's coming up. Would love to see if we can get everyone to sign up. You do not necessarily have to donate to sign up or even be at the event, but it would be great to get a large number participating. But of course, any donation you do, and Rotary's always been very generous, goes directly to American Cancer Society. They cover all areas. They work on prevention, they work in education, they work on treatments. So if someone's suffering from cancer, they have resources, and then they also work on research for a cure. And unfortunately, I think all of us, within and without Rotary, either ourselves have experienced cancer, or a loved one has either succumbed to it or hopefully survived it. And so it's a charity that touches all our lives. So anyway, that's coming up. The details are in the email. It's taking place again at this down in Stowe, and I don't have all the details with me, but please check your emails, and I can answer any questions later if you need. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and thanks for sending that email. It does have all the information that you would need, so it's nice and easy. Rich Warfield.
Okay, got up here a little quicker this time. The 19th and the 26th, we're looking at 1 or 2 days to go out and clean up the pool. I know some veterans. One of my main elves in the past is traveling, so he won't be here this year. We'll miss him, but please send me an email about being available if you want to come out. They have breakfast for us. It's basically just light breakfast, and then they cook us lunch afterwards. So it's a fun event, and we are the official Rotary Club of the Boy Scouts pool. There's a big plaque there, and so we want to keep up that honor. So I'd like to have some of my veterans come back. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. If you haven't had an opportunity to go check out that pool, whether you're available or not on the 19th or the 26th, which we hope that many of you are, I would suggest that you take a look at that facility out there. It's absolutely incredible, and it's about twice as nice as what I would have expected for the Camp Manitowoc pool. So good stuff there, Rich. Thank you very much. And moving into our presentation this morning, Jim Ahern.
Good morning. Following on our theme this month of social issues, topic today is bullying. And I was going to ask the question, how many people have been bullied at some point in their previous life, or know of people? No, you don't have to raise your hands. Because I think the subject is funny, because Ron, you've never been bullied, no way. But it's a, to me, the more I read about it, the more I've learned about it, because of some issues that happened to my kids and then my grandkids. There's a lot more to it than just thinking somebody is picking on you. And I think it has some overwhelming emotional impact that our speaker is going to talk about. Susan Tucker has a master's degree in clinical work from The Ohio State University. She's a licensed independent social worker and a member of the Academy of Certified Social Workers. She has worked at the community outreach director for the Summit County Domestic Relations Court for the last 15 years. Prior to her service at the court, she worked for Summit County Children's Services for 10 years and was private practice for 5 years. She developed a curriculum called No Bullies, No Victims to address bullying and peer aggression in schools and the workplace. She has worked with thousands of students, staff, and parents addressing needs of the bully and the bullied. Let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Susan Tucker.
Thank you. Lots of tall people here. Okay, so why do you think I have those statistics up on the board? What's your best guess? Part of it is because I need for staff and others to understand that lots of our kids come to school before they walk in the door with lots of vulnerabilities. And I can tell you that those, other than the poverty, although even in Hudson schools we have kids who are living in poverty, lots of divorced families, lots of substance abuse, lots of domestic violence, and those are pretty much stable across communities, across socioeconomic statuses. What we know is that 56% of all students have witnessed a bullying crime take place in school. Now, I'm not talking about a little bit of, I gave you the stink eye, or, I bumped into you. I'm talking about bullying that would be considered a crime, something that if an adult had done it, could end up getting them arrested. 15% of all students who don't show up for school report it's because they don't want to be there because of how other kids are treating them. And so we do have a lot of kids that will miss school and because they just can't face it. I had a young man who was a 7th grader here in Hudson who, when I was in private practice, came to see me and said, he was a very gifted musician. He was a straight A student. He was in 3 different bands because he was very, very talented. And he had started wanting to give all that up. His grades were dropping. His parents did not know what was going on. They didn't know if he was becoming depressed or what was happening. So he came in to meet me. And we went through the intake, and when you're doing an intake in counseling, it's a long intake. And so we got about 20 minutes in. He said, okay, listen, my birth was fine. There's been nothing traumatic in my life. Can they leave? Wow. And of course, Mom was like, it's us. I knew it was us. No, and I said, no, why don't you guys go, have a seat out there. And he goes, okay, here's the thing. My 2 best friends since kindergarten have started calling me Nancy. Do you think I'm gay? I said, I don't know. Do you think you're gay? Well, I like girls. Do you think I should get a girlfriend? I said, in 7th grade? No. More trouble than it's worth. Well, do you think I should lift weights? I said, well, you can lift weights. What do you tell me? What happened when they called you Nancy? And he said, well, I got really upset. And I said, my name is not Nancy. And I said, oh. He goes, I came to you because somebody told me you have the words. And that's really what a lot of these kids need is the words. How do you deal with aggression? How many of you have had to deal with somebody who was very aggressive? And how many of you knew immediately what to do? Because what happens with a lot of these kids is, 71% of students report that bullying is an ongoing issue. 1 out of every 10 kids drops out or changes school because of bullying. And 1 out of 20 students has seen a child with a gun at school. Okay? This is across socioeconomic boundaries. So when we talk about the damage that it does, somebody calling you Nancy doesn't seem like that much of a deal, right? Nobody has touched him. Nobody has done anything to him. But for him, it was devastating because he didn't know what to do about it. And so he kept getting upset. And of course, these 2 friends of his, the more he got upset, the more they got a kick out of it, and the more they kept doing it. So I'll go on with that story in a minute. So we know that 90% of 4th through 8th graders have reported witnessing or being victims of. And what I call this is I call it throwing out bait. So at least 90% of kids have had somebody try to do something aggressive to them, have thrown out the bait. Okay, 54% reported that witnessing physical abuse at home can lead to violence in school, and we know that 1 out of 4 of our kids is witnessing domestic violence in the home. And working for the court system doing civil protection orders, I can tell you that in 10 years ago, maybe we got 200 filings for civil protection orders for domestic violence. At this point, we're up to about 1,300. So it's growing. And guess when it grew the biggest? Recession. In the recession. Okay? When people are stressed out, when people are losing all of their resources. About 282,000 kids are reportedly attacked in high schools throughout each month. And when we talk about physically attacked, you're not going to see as much physical violence here in Hudson. And it's interesting as you go to different school systems, what's tolerated, what's not. So there's a really low tolerance for any kind of physical stuff here in your schools. But think about bullying as conflict. How many of you have families? And how many of you have ever had any conflict in your homes? Okay, the only way you don't have any conflict at all is if you live alone. Okay? And then if you have a pet, you can still have conflict with the pet. Okay? When you get a bunch of people together, there is going to be conflict. And you guys have these wonderful rules, which I think we should teach to kids from the time they're in kindergarten, because that's basically what No Bullies, No Victims is teaching them, are these rules. You know, parents have a responsibility to teach kids 3 important rules in life. Keep your hands and feet to yourselves. And yet our court systems are designed for thousands and thousands of people who come through our courts who haven't managed to learn that rule. Basic respect of other people, respect other people's property. Don't use, don't destroy, don't damage, don't take things that are not yours. Thousands of people come through the court system because they haven't learned that rule. And the third rule, and I always tell the kids this is the most important, is the golden rule, to treat other people the way you want to be treated. Right now, we have an epidemic of uncivil, inappropriate behavior. Part of it is fueled by violent video games, and I would ask any of you, how many of you have ever played Grand Theft Auto? Anybody? Okay, so you have. Yeah. A lot of your kids have. So how do you get points in Grand Theft Auto? Crime. You steal things, you sell drugs. If your person starts running low and you want to recharge your battery, you find a prostitute, you take her in the back of the car. The more the car goes up and down, the more your character is recharged, and then if you, what? Yeah, and then if you want extra points, you beat her up and take your money back. Yeah, that's the most popular video game series in America. Okay, and in most of the video games, the males and the females are both very violent. The difference is the females are dressed like Barbie on steroids. So they have these incredible figures and they don't have much clothes on. So we're mixing sex and violence as games. The Steubenville mess. Do you remember the Steubenville mess? They called me in to consult on that. And they all blew it. As you have found out, they all blew it. But the reality is that those kids who were videotaping that, because that's how they got caught, by the way, all kids videotape everything. So somebody was saying, I think, James, you were saying kids all think they're on camera. Well, part of that is that whole reality TV show, video game kind of thing, where everybody is a star, where, you know, it all started with Mr. Rogers telling them all that they're important and they're special. And I've had to remind many of my grandchildren that you are not any more special than all of the other kids in your class. So you have to obey the rules. We have a lot of people in our society who don't think they have to obey the rules because the rules don't apply to them. Work in any court system and find out how many people think the rules don't apply to me. You know, those are made for somebody else. So we've got all kinds of things going on. I ask kids, how many of you think video games are real? They do. They think it reflects real life. And one of the things we know is that children who play a lot of violent video games, which is what many of the kids today say they do for stress, what it does is it reduces the activity in the frontal lobe of the brain, the reasoning, the problem solving, and it lights up the survival brain, the fight, flee, or freeze. And I've added another F to that. I've added film it. Because you can't, people standing out there in tornadoes and standing there and filming it so they can send it in to somebody. Everybody films everything. Back when I was a kid, my mother always taught me the eyes of society are on you. I'll know what you do. And that's because every mother in the neighborhood could punish me and then call my mother, who would then punish me further. My parents never said to me, "What did that teacher do to you?" It was always, "Your job is to graduate. You will never be disrespectful." That's not the same messages kids are getting now. And teachers are having to deal, and James, you were talking about that, with very aggressive parents who don't want to hold their kids accountable for the unpleasant, inappropriate things they're doing. So we have a whole lot of things that go on that lead to these kind of statistics. So when we're talking about bullying versus aggression, I like to call it aggressive behavior rather than bullying. Because if I say to you, you're bullying somebody, I'm giving you a label. If I say that was a pretty aggressive thing to do, well, now we've got something to work with. So I rarely call it bullying. But, you know, in schools, when you have a lot of people in one place, you're going to have disagreements, right? Disagreements happen between equals, and what we do with disagreements is we problem solve. We have a problem-solving deficit epidemic right now. And if we can teach our kids to problem solve, we could sit them down in the middle of a field in China and they would thrive. Okay, so working on that problem solving, instead of this is a terrible thing that happened, well, what do you think you can do about it? Because nothing is so bad except death that you can't problem solve your way out of it. Okay? So really working on problem solving with those disagreements they have with their friends, reducing it, calming everything down, and problem solving through it. Sometimes we have mild aggression, and the way that I describe this is, how many of you have ever been driving in your car and you're driving near someone who just can't get out of their own way? Or we say a little something under our breath about how that person is driving. Any of you ever done that? Of course, we all have. That's mild aggression. You're not intending for it to harm anybody, are you? No. but it's just an expression of your frustration. So sometimes in schools, people do get dirty looks, or people do bump into somebody, or people do, make a sharp comment. It's not bullying. It's mild aggression. It happens when you have a whole bunch of people in one place, and what we do is we say, I'm sorry. When we get to moderate aggression, that's where it's repetitive, that's where it's intentional. I'm saying this to upset you. So moderate aggression is where not only am I mumbling under my breath, but I'm rolling down my window and I'm shaking my fist, okay? Or I'm yelling out the window. I'm intending to upset that other person. I'm intending to exercise some kind of control over that other person. Does that make sense? Now we're getting into some bullying here because it's intentional. I mean to upset you, and it may be repetitive. When we get to severe aggression, that's where someone gets hit. So that's where you block the guy's car and get out and punch him in the nose. Now you've committed a crime, okay? So when we talk about the levels of aggression that we see, typically, teachers aren't even aware of the first three. Why? Because kids don't tell anybody. Kids really believe, especially boys, that they have to deal with it on their own. That young man who had come in to see me had never told his parents what was going on with his friends. He didn't want to get his friends in trouble. He was very embarrassed by it. He could tell me, and we talked about it, and we rehearsed some things he could do. And what we did was we rehearsed where I just said, okay, so it's not your fault, but your friends are getting a big reaction from you and they're liking it. So here's what I want you to do. And we just sat and practiced in my office for 20 minutes. So what's your point? Really? Uh-huh. Oh, well. Whatever. I called him Nancy repeatedly, and that's what he did. And so I set another appointment up for 2 weeks later, and his mom called me and said, oh, it's a miracle. He's back doing whatever he needed to do. And it's really because he didn't know what to do. So if we can teach kids how to respond when someone's aggressive. How many of you have ever had to deal with aggressive people at work? We all have. And you know how we respond to that very much determines how happy we are. When I started at the court, the judges asked me to do a retreat on diversity because it was right around 9/11. We'd had some issues with people having a difficult time, some of our court staff having a difficult time with Arabic people, and we're not going to tolerate that. And so she wanted me to put together a retreat. Well, I love retreats. I love to go and learn new things. I like to do fun stuff. I found out that many people don't like that. They wanted a day at Geauga Lake. Remember Geauga Lake? Yeah. So they wanted to go to Geauga Lake or something. And I said, well, the judges really want me to put this together. I actually had a staff member come and say to me, nobody wants to go to this retreat and everybody hates you. And I said, well, that's their choice to hate me. And she said, well, doesn't it bother you that they hate? And I said, no, I got thick skin. As long as everybody is polite to me, I'm polite to them. And what the judges tell me to do, I do. And she's like, well, I can't believe that. I said, hey, comes with the territory. And then immediately went into the judge's office and said, everybody hates me, they don't like me. And she's like, oh, calm down, that person is just one that does. But to that person, I had to show a very nonchalant thing. And that person, did she ever try to pick on me again? No, because it didn't work. I've had staff who have yelled at me, and my response is always this: I'm always willing to discuss things. I am never willing to be disrespected. I would never talk to you this way. You will never talk to me that way again. So why don't you go and calm down and then call me back when you can discuss it. Now, where did I figure that one out? From raising teenage girls. Okay? It's the only thing that kept them alive and me sane. So when we talk about aggressive behavior, when we talk about bullying, it has a lot of components. It might be physical, it might be verbal. And you know, when we talk about the physical, we don't see a lot of hitting, but what we do see is a lot of subtle poking. So I had a kid from Hudson who was Asperger's. Anybody know what that is? It's a form of autism. They don't like to be touched. It's very painful. And so this smaller kid would just poke him in the side, and he'd use his words, "I don't like that. Please don't do that." Poke. "I ask you not to do that." Poke. "Stop doing that." Yellow card. Poke. And pretty soon he's on the floor wrestling around, and when I got the referral, they thought he was intermittent explosive disorder because he would just suddenly, for no reason, attack this kid. Yeah. So what it was with him, I just had to teach him. We practice. Poke. Oh, I love it. Do it again. Poke. You know that means you like me. Poke. That feels so good. Poke. I like you too. Poke. And he did it, and he said, the other kid said to him, "You're no fun anymore." Okay? So it could be physical, but very subtle. Lots of verbal stuff. The language that kids use. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, if I had said the word damn, by the ear to the office, call my parents come in, by the ear, home, and punished. Teachers today have to deal with unbelievable language from these kids and unbelievable disrespect from these kids. Intimidation is how the person feels. Do they feel threatened by what you're doing? Exclusion is huge, especially in suburban and in urban schools. But in suburban schools, this is how they do a lot of their aggression, is by leaving someone out or doing what I call enemy of the week, where they pick out a victim for this week and then everybody trashes that victim, trashes their reputation, starts rumors about them, and then what happens is they move on to the next victim. I've worked with organizations where there was always an enemy of the week. And usually that's done in organizations by people who are fairly incompetent, but they don't want anybody to notice, so they make an enemy that everybody picks on. In schools, it's interesting because it's usually the popular kids who do this exclusion. And they're popular, I'm always telling kids, they're popular in their own minds, because everybody else can't stand them, but everybody wants to be in that group. And so they're popular because the other kids have made them that way. And parents really get involved in this popularity thing. You were talking about how parents would come up because they had heard a rumor. Parents are terrible in many of these schools. They do things. I was at a middle school, last year, and these parents were like attacking the principal at the parents' meeting with all of these allegations that there was a gun at school and all of that because they'd seen it on Facebook. It had never happened. But all of these parents are up in arms over the fact that they weren't notified of the gun in school. That's because there wasn't a gun in school. This was a Facebook rumor. Kids have had cops come to their houses because of Facebook rumors. So it's not just rumors that we send in school. We've got the cyber stuff that goes on too. And at many schools, the cyber stuff is the most deadly because our children are addicted to their cell phones and to their social media. And we have allowed that to happen. When I work at Western Reserve, I do a lot of work with Western Reserve.